You ever wonder why people are the way that they are? You ever wonder why people think the way that they think? Well, here's an answer to your questions. This is the Sit Down.
But yeah, man. Welcome back, Mr. Ward. I know last time we had sat down and talked, we went over a lot about why you do what you do, coming up, growing up, and the reason why you into the community services and giving back. So today, man, let's just go over what you got going, and in particular, and I know we work on your website with you. And, you got a couple of events going. So let's go through some of these events, man, and remind the people, what Carl Ward got working.
Gotcha. Well, again, thank you for having me back.
No problem.
Especially so soon. I really appreciate it. So, a few things we got working. We have the Community Cleanup Initiative. That's happening on May 18th. It's going to be in the Greenspoint area. It's on Rush Creek Drive between Ella Boulevard and Spears Road. We picked the road back there. That's a road that, for as long as I can remember, it's been a road with a lot of grass. It's a grassy area. It's not developed, and it's always been a dump site. So I spoke with the city once before earlier in the year. They came out. They picked up about 2 big trailers worth of trash, and the lady who was over the whole initiative that comes out to clean up the trash, we talked about it, and we said, you know what, we need to make this a community effort as well, because we had the city involved, but let's get the community involved. So we finally got that working. That'll be May 18th. We're offering free volunteer shirts to the first 40 volunteers that show up. We'll provide refreshments and food as well, because it'll be from 8 to 12. So I want to make sure everybody's hydrated and energized. So
yeah, it's going to be hot there.
Right, right. So, that's something I'm looking forward to. Another thing we have coming up, again, I spoke about it, the back to school drive we're having on August 10th. That'll be at Thomas Russo Park. That's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And again, that's August 10th at Thomas Russo Park. It's going to be a big event. Even since the last time we spoke, I've reached out to more people in the community. Actually attended a HPD meeting. They have a meeting in the community once a month. It's called PIP. It's I forget what it stands for right now, but it's the Police Interaction Program is what it is. And what they're doing, they want to come out and interact with the community on just a, person-to-person level, where it's not they wasn't called out, they don't have to do their job at that time, the part of the job that I'm sure they don't like to do, and, us as citizens, we don't like to be on the other side of it. But this team that they created is specifically for community-related events. So they came and spoke, and I let them know about the community cleanup, and they were very interested. They say they actually have their own team that they head those type of initiatives as well. So they'll be partnering with us. Cool. We have a few coaches from the area that they're bringing out. They're bringing out their football team. Both have football teams, so they'll have their players out there. We have a dojo in Greenspoint, Sensei School of Martial Arts. Actually, my son attends the school. They'll have their students out there as well, helping out, and whatever other volunteers we get to come out. And we're looking to make this a monthly event. So we'll start, the way we do it, we're asking for suggestions from the community of areas that they see that need attention. And then we'll also be out surveying ourselves to see what areas, we need to pay attention to and clean up. And another thing we're working on with that is once we do get the cleanup going and it's consistent, we're also looking to work with the city to get cameras implemented. So anybody that does get caught dumping, they can be prosecuted, if they're caught dumping. That's another way to deter it altogether. But so those are 2 of the things we have going on. I was at a community event this past weekend. It was Easter, so it was an Easter event on Good Friday. I was over on the northeast side, And I ran into a family friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a while, and we got to talking, and he was telling me how he's a swim instructor. Swimming has been his passion his whole life. So we got to talking, and I was like, look, we got a lot of apartments in Greenspoint, so let's get together and let's come up with a swimming program where we can teach the kids how to swim, and we'll actually come into the apartments and we'll teach you. Yeah, so it'll be like it's going to be like an 8 to 9 week program. It said 9 because that first week is going to be the testing to see where each kid stands individually. So that'll be a 9-week course that we have going, and it'll be every Saturday at a designated pool in the area, and hopefully we can. Once we get the program going, we can move around to different areas, even expand out into the city as well. So,
did you have to get with a lot of apartment complexes before you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So another thing that the HPD does as well, they host meetings with the businesses and the apartment management and owners in the area. So that allowed me a chance to get in front of everyone and speak to everyone at the same time. And another thing I addressed with them was the need to come up with a way to communicate things that are going on in the community, to communicate it to the residents in the apartments. Mm-hmm. Because what you would have to do is go knock on doors. Just go door to door, knock on doors, or leave flyers on doors. But I know the apartments, they have ways to communicate to their residents. Yeah. When rents due, things like that, like they have apps that you download the app and you pay your rent through that app now and everything. So we're working on a way to bridge that gap, that lack of communication. But that's another thing that we see a lot of within the community is just the lack of knowing what's going on. And I feel like it's a lot of times it's coming from, like, if the city has things going on, they have their centers and things where they put their flyers. But if, first off, it's not in your area, then people are not going to see it. Right. And if you don't frequent any of those locations, you won't see it. So, area opportunity I see is to actually find a way to get this information to everybody in the community.
You spoke a lot about law enforcement involvement and a lot of things partnering up. How do you deal with, like, when you got residents or pretty much community members in there? Their resistance from even working with law enforcement is based on, pretty much what we're told when we grow up. Then now you got what we see when we watch the TV, and you got a lot of political movements going on that divides law enforcement with the Black community. Right. So when you are coming, when you're partnering with the law enforcement, and which I commend, by the way. How do you talk to the people that's kind of like still weary, because on one hand they kind of do have a reason to be, it's not you notice that, and I think someone spoke on the other day, you could get PTSD from watching the news all the time and seeing killing and this and that, and then you log on the internet and you do nothing but seeing viral videos and memes and things as going viral to keep hyping the beef up, right? The disconnect up. So on one hand, you got to understand. I got to understand why they feel that way or why people feel that way, and you have to realize that in some situations it's warranted, but at the same time it's not healthy. Right. You know what I'm saying?
And that's basically what I try to let them know, that I understand the past relationships, even things that's going on now in the media and things like that. I understand that aspect of it. But then, like you say, you also have to look at that it's not healthy to not have some type of relationship with everyone in your community. And I use personal experience as well, because coming up in Greenspoint, I had run in with the police and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I'm chilling out in my apartments, me and a few people that live in the apartments. And I explained this at a town hall meeting to Sheila Lee Jackson before, that we live in Greenspoint, we live in apartments. Apartments are small. A lot of times you have more people in there that should be. So as kids, outside is your escape. you outside most of the time until the sun go down or whenever mama tell you to come in, street lights
yeah.
come on, whatever, you know.
Right.
So until then we outside, just, you know, getting a peace of mind, hanging out with your friends just to get out the house and not feel crowded. But in those situations, I don't know if the police were called or they rolled by and maybe thought something was going on, but they would pull up on us, shake us down, everything. And we're just trying to explain, hey, we live here. We're just hanging out here. Was anybody called? What's going on? They couldn't give us any answers. But at the end of the day, it's them looking for drugs and things like that. And it's like, you can't profile people in the community, and I was profiled coming up. But meeting these officers with this team that's trying to do community outreach, that's something that we didn't have back then. That's something that we didn't see in Greenspoint back then. So I feel like they're taking a notice of where they stand in the community and how things are looking in the public eye, and they're taking a proactive approach to circumvent that or try to start a conversation or open dialogue with the community, you know, and they let us know straight up what they're looking for in the community, the problems that they having in the community. So it's like, again, those people who are resistant, they're resistant either because they had a bad interaction with law enforcement or they're doing something that may catch law enforcement's eye and not in a good way. So one thing I try to explain to them then as well is, look, this is what's going on, and this touches on the area where you at now. You fall in this category. So this is what's coming. You may want to change it. You may want to correct it before it becomes a major problem for you. You know, and that's all I could do. I could just give them the advice of what's going on in the community and why it's going on. You know, Greenspoint, it was built initially to be a business district. You know, unfortunately, because of things that happened with Exxon and oil, it became a low-income community. But it's getting to the point where they're trying to bring it back to a business district and gentrify and all of that. So it's like, hey, do you want to be the change that's made, or do you want to be a part of the changes that are made? You know, so that's just how I try to explain it to them. And actually, it's been received quite well lately. You know, because it took me by surprise to really be in front of law enforcement and having open dialogue with them. Mm-hmm. I had never had open dialogue like that with law enforcement, you know? So it was a surprise to me. So I felt the same way, like, man, how are my people going to receive this when I go back and tell them, like, hey, y'all, I made a connection with the HPD, you know? I'm thinking they're going to look at me like,
same HPD that took away that, same HPD that hit me up.
Everyone I spoke to, the first thing out their mouth was, man, that's good. That's a good thing.
Oh, man,
so I'm like, okay, well, everybody, I feel like everybody's in a position right now where they want change. Everybody doesn't necessarily know how to go about making those changes. It goes back to lack of knowledge again, because there are resources in your community that are available for you right now today that you may not know about. And that's why I came up with mangrovecommunity.org, is to try to bridge those gaps that I see in the community, that lack of communication or the lack of knowledge, the not knowing what's out there for you and you're complaining about it every day. Just like if you are complaining about police brutality and you have a police department in your area that has a community outreach team, then why aren't you at those meetings voicing your concerns and your opinions and letting them know what they can do to do their job better in the community? You know what I'm saying? And be received better in the community.
Does your personal experience with law enforcement kind of does that kind of drive you to doing what you're doing for the community? Because like you said, you know, some people grow up within the community, right. Within, you know, it's Greenspoint's all over the place, right? Like just
exactly.
hoods, right? And
right.
sometimes, you know, when you're growing up in the hood or in low income areas like that, you only know one thing.
Right.
You know, you're taught from your parents who had to grow up doing the same thing, or you know, they might have some bad experiences with law enforcement, so they pass that resentment down to their kids, and so they have to learn. And again, like we can both sit there and acknowledge that it's tough, you know, but it does seem, you know, it's come across to me as like, you know, ever since that situation happened with you personally, you know, even as a young kid, like that being your only time interacting with the police, It's like, man, that describes a lot of lives. You know what I mean?
It does.
And so yeah, man, it definitely sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like that's kind of a lot where your drive comes from.
Yeah.
To try to fix it so people won't go through that.
Right. Yeah, and that is I guess the foundation of my drive. I just look back over my life and the things that I went through that I felt that could have been prevented or, gone about a different way. I just look back and I don't want those things for my kids or the kids that they have to come up with. So that's where it all stems from, trying to make that change, trying to make a better future for all of our kids, for the future generation. Because they bright, man. Our kids are bright with these mentoring programs that we have going on. And that's another thing we're working on as well, putting a mentoring program together. We're moving into the new building in June. The sensei from the dojo, they're actually moving their building, and they're going to let me get a spot in the building to run my mentoring program and things like that. So that's something we're getting set up and we're looking forward to this summer. But in the mentoring, we're talking to the younger kids, middle school, high school. Man, it's so much talent. Like I went to one high school, was talking to one kid, and he told me he's an artist. He likes to do art. So he shows me his portfolio. He opens up a portfolio of a whole shoe line, tennis shoes. And when I tell you they were nice tennis shoes, they were competing with the Jays and the LeBrons and the KDs, like in the style and the fashion of everything. And I was like, man, this is talent right here. You got something going. Like, hold on to this. But what I'm noticing is that high school, graduating, going into adult life, that's where a lot of the dreams are crushed. Because there's no resources, there's no avenues to show them how to continue to hone the skills that they have and how to turn it into money for them, because especially being an artist, you really have to have business savvy to figure out how to turn your art into money, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's another problem. A lot of these dreams are getting killed within the community before these kids get to their adult lives and really have the ability to go after their dreams.
You had brought up gentrification.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a concern for you when you think about the residents in the Greenspoint area?
Yeah. It's a huge concern. What I don't want to see happen to Greenspoint is Greenspoint get built back up to be a nice area as far as, the businesses are booming again. Because it's a lot of major corporations and all these changes come about and then property taxes are raised and the residents that live there are pushed out and they can't afford it. That's what I don't want to see. So my idea on curbing that is to create an economy in Greenspoint to where, okay, say they do gentrify and they do raise a property tax. Okay, we can afford that. So we stand right here, and one of the things, the community garden, like this is where I feel like the economic part in Greenspoint will start from, as far as the organization that I'm working on and trying to put in the community. It's going to be from the dirt. And what I mean by that is with this community garden that we're going to put in play. Once we put the community garden in play, we can start to set up farmers markets once a month. Within the farmer market, you can have local businesses come out, set up tents and sell their products and merchandise and services. And so you're letting the community know what type of businesses you have in the area that they may not know about. And then you're also exposing those businesses and getting them more customers and things like that so they can grow and continue to grow. And, if it's somebody that we see that has, a huge turnout every month, then why not as a community look to getting them a building to sell that product out of and stay within the community. You know what I'm saying?
So explain the concept of community garden and where did you get this idea from?
Community garden idea, it really, the idea for me came, I was trying to figure out a way to generate income in the community. But I knew you had to have something that can benefit the community as a whole. We can do the pop-up shops and just bring vendors out, but what I don't feel like the incentive is there for the community to come out, and because it's basically just like, oh, you're trying to sell me something. But with this community garden, you have food deserts in low income communities. And Greenspoint just became one of those communities over the last 5 to 10 years when they took the Krogers out.
Explain the food desert.
So a food desert is it's an area where you don't have a grocery store with produce, with fresh produce and things like that within walking distance, or on the bus route, where you don't have to go too far to get it. But in Greenspoint now, you have to go with 4 exits down the freeway before you find the first store with produce, and that would be Walmart. Then you have HEB, about 10 exits the opposite way. So that's what we're dealing with in Greenspoint. It's a lot of other areas I know dealing with that. The Northeast side, they're dealing with it in the worst way. So a way to circumvent that, if you can put the community garden in play, you're doing 2 things. You're actually creating fresh produce for the community. But then what we're trying to do is get the community to come out and learn how to grow these different crops. So if you are fortunate enough to stay in the house in the Greenspoint area, you have a backyard, you can pick and choose what herbs and spices and things you want to grow in your backyard. We're looking to get fruit trees out. I know an organization that donates fruit trees, so we want that in the community garden. But we're also looking to encourage people to put them in their backyards. If it's not against any HOA, rules or anything like that, let's put it in your backyard. Let's get back to the days where we can go out and pick our fruit right off the tree out our backyard. We don't have to always go to the store to buy our fruit and produce, And that was something I learned when I went to Puerto Rico. A lot of the name of my organization, that played into the whole community garden thing as well. I went to Puerto Rico and I went on a tour. It's the Coconut Revolution tour, and it's a guy named Brandon, and he moved to Puerto Rico from Maryland, moved there, fell in love with the area, and he runs a tour. Now, we were in San Juan, but his tour is maybe 20, 30 minutes outside of San Juan, and it's actually an area of Puerto Rico where in the days where, they were bringing the slaves over and things like that, there were some slaves that escaped from San Juan, and you had to cross this little this inlet of water. So they had to cross over the inlet of water and get to the other side, and it wasn't developed at all. So when they ran away, the slave owners was like, "Hey, just let them go. They won't survive. They won't make it." And sure enough, they survived. And this place is called Luis, and it's in Puerto Rico, Luis, and it's inhabited by Black people, and they own the land. No one can tell them what to do on that land. They can do whatever they want. They own it. And I think it was in 2015, just as a demonstration, they paid Puerto Rico $1 just to say they paid for the land and it's theirs and they own it. So we're going over there. Brandon actually took us by his house, and when we went by his house, he took us into his backyard. He had banana trees, mango trees, just fresh fruit growing in his backyard. And I was like, wow, this how we're supposed to be living, this life, man. You go outside, you pick fruit off your tree. And then he also told us about, the mangrove trees, which the mangrove trees, they inhabit coastal areas. Mm-hmm. But the mangrove tree is very unique in the habitat that it survives and thrives in. So mangrove trees, they grow in very salty water, which is not ideal for trees in the first place, but they manage to survive in salty water. And they do this by the way that their roots grow, because the soil doesn't have a lot of oxygen in it because of the salt in the water and things like that. The roots grow up towards the surface, towards the oxygen. And when they do that, they intertwine and connect to where if you want to pull up one mangrove tree, you have to pull up all the mangrove trees because their roots are intertwined underground and above ground. And another thing that the root system does with the way it grows, it creates a ecosystem for the smaller fish and algae and things like that really don't have anything to thrive off of in that type of ecosystem either. It creates an ecosystem. It also protects the land, the inland, from storm surges and things like that. That's another part that the mangrove tree plays. And as I got to thinking about everything that's going on in the community, I was like, this is a great model to model my organization after. You know, it's on unfertile land, which low income areas, they're considered, you know, areas that are not the best areas, not the ideal areas, ideal conditions, but you still have people that are living there, they're growing there, they're thriving there. Another thing I was saying earlier, we want to create an economy for Greenspoint within the community. I feel like that's symbolic to the ecosystem that the mangrove tree provides for the smaller fish and things in the area. And then, you know, with it protecting the inland against storm surges, hurricanes, and things like that, that's another thing that this organization represents. Not only in a physical sense, because we do have hurricanes and things like that. We want to be there for their support during, after, and all of that. But we also, the political storms that come to the community, the corporate storms that come to the community, we want to protect our citizens against that as well. So that's another position that the organization plays within the community.
So I guess going a little bit about like what your vision is when you say you want to create an economy within Greenspoint. Like, what do you mean by that, and how exactly does that benefit the residents?
The residents, okay. Well, with that, we're looking for all different type of talents out of the community. So right now, if you want soul food in Greenspoint, you have to go outside of Greenspoint to get soul food. If you want good Mexican food right now in Greenspoint, you have to go outside of Greenspoint to get it. You know, so we need a good soul food restaurant. We need a good Mexican restaurant in the area. What else are we missing? It's a lot that we're missing. It's a lot that people have to go outside of Greenspoint to go get different things. So what we want to do is we want to find the people within the community that are already providing those services that we may not know about, and try to grow their business to where they can get a brick and mortar and become, you know, a permanent establishment within the community. And in doing so, they'll be able to hire from within the community. So that creates jobs as well. And then, you know, as we continue to grow, we just continue to put more and more businesses till we have everything we need right in Greenspoint. You know, we have, you know, and it's all working together, fortunately, because I have classmates that I went to school with. They just put a nice daiquiri shop in the Greenspoint area. So it's a good look. It's bringing a lot of people out. So if we can draw the crowds out and have things for the crowds to do when they come to Greenspoint, it's going to be a great look for the community.
Now, I know it's a tough one because, you know, I mean, I often have these conversations with people too, and what ends up happening is we have to come, you know, to agree, disagree, or whatever. When it comes down to bringing that to the hood, because we all know why the hood is the hood, right? And we all know why businesses started off and then leave the hood. And then we just recently, you know, went through a death of, you know, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle, while he's in the community, bringing an economy in the community, open up a store and provide jobs. So, you know, when, you know, me personally, you know, I can see both sides to it, man. I mean, I definitely commend anybody for giving back. I mean, I teach, so that's a daily thing that you give back to the youth. But I also understand how in some situations why people say, man, I got to help the community from a distance because, you know, I don't want to put my own safety, my family's safety, my financial, you know, my way of making money in jeopardy because I'm trying to give too much back. I can understand that argument. I also can understand that attitude causes more destruction, right? That attitude makes people wonder why you don't want to go back to the hood. Oh, it's the hood. Oh man, this is, you know, whatever. Now the hood, you'll turn on the internet, the hood's glorified. You know what I mean? Like that lifestyle, and people ain't even lived it. You know, people ain't even come from it, but then they see it and they think it's cool. But they don't understand that it leads up to deaths. Like you said, it leads up to neighborhoods being abandoned by businesses, you know, all kinds of stuff. So when you're putting together a vision of bringing the economy back to Greenspoint.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you can, talk to those who are kind of skeptical about even opening a business? Because there might be a lot of people that have businesses and looking for a place, but the last place they will go is to Greenspoint.
It's Greenspoint.
So I guess how would you talk to someone who had a business that was wondered or was concerned about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been looking at the crime statistics in the area.
Mm-hmm.
I've been looking a lot at that, and they're not higher than any other area, whether it's low income or not. So a lot of what the issue with Greenspoint is the hype around it. There were some things that happened back in the day, in the early 90s. You had a lawman that was abducted from the mall and murdered.
Shootouts at the mall.
Right. Shootouts at the mall.
When I was in high school.
Within the apartments in the early 90s, you had a lot of the drugs coming in and the people bringing them in.
Mm-hmm.
They left a bad name because there was a lot of murders and things like that within the apartments. I don't know if you remember City Under Siege. They used to come on Fox 26.
Yeah.
Greenspoint stayed on Fox 26. And that's when we got our bad rap.
Okay.
So what they didn't talk about was after that, up until like 1996, the police, they hit the area real hard, and they decreased the crime rate by 30%.
Okay.
In the Greenspoint area, but they don't talk about that. And Greenspoint it's not bad like people remember, right? It's still a low income area, so yeah, you still have your incidents and things like that, but it's not. If you're 9 times out of 10, if you're not involved in that lifestyle, you shouldn't have any problem.
So again, going back to the HPD presence and the partnerships, do you feel like that is a benefit to that community? The fact that they came in, they kind of cleaned up a little bit, and now instead of continuing to consider anybody that's a resident of Greenspoint a suspect, now they're doing things like partnership, community outreach, and things like that. So with and again, how we always got finished discussing how sometimes police presence can be kind of a pushback for residents or people coming in there.
And that's a way we're gonna have to get past, because we're dealing with it again right now in Greenspoint, because they're making a major push to gentrify Greenspoint. It's something they've been wanting to do for a long time now. It's just the area,
kind of like you see in Third Ward,
right? But the Greenspoint area is so unique and different from a lot of areas because it is a business district. So it's not only residents, but it's meant to generate business as well. So you have a mix of people that you see coming in and out of Greenspoint. Now with the police presence, it's back up again. I was in Greenspoint today, and every street that I turned on, it was a police had a car pulled over, and I know what that's about. They're trying to clean up the neighborhood. They're trying to clean up the community. It happened last time. And then another thing that doesn't, I feel like it needs to be cleaned up, that's an issue in Greenspoint, is you have the business owners who are allowing this stuff to go on inside and outside of their businesses. And I do have a problem if I want to walk into the corner store and I decide to take my son with me that day, and somebody asks me, do I want this, and that? And then once me and my son leave out the store, I got to explain to my son what this, and that is.
It really is.
So that's the problem I see. I'm going to just be honest, and we can just be honest. It's nothing that you're going to be able to stop completely. And the way I talk to these dudes, and I'm honest with them, I'm like, look, this is what's happening. They're looking at all the stores in Greenspoint right now. All this hanging out, all this loading and all that. That's what they're looking for.
Right.
So I advise you to move around, find somewhere else to do what you're doing where you're not bringing so much attention to yourself, because this is what's to come. And once it happened, I can't feel sorry for you. I can't feel bad for you, because you knew what was going on and you had the chance to do something different, and you being out trying to make money on the block is stopping even more money from coming into the community. Because if we can get the crime rate down and this crime element under control, it's so much business that are coming to Greenspoint.
So is it safe to say, because I often argue this as well, you know, when people are talking about, you know, doing this to the community, bring back this, or there's nothing there, and there's nothing, you know, and and like ain't nobody doing nothing for the hood, and you know, people is getting this money and not coming back, or you got a black president and he ain't done nothing for the hood, and you know, all these arguments. And I'm like, but don't you realize there's a lot of people that may not want the hood to change? Because it's a lot of hood money being made. A lot of hood money. Right. You know, and cleaning up that area sometimes will disrupt somebody's hood money.
When you say a lot, I don't feel like it's a lot. Okay. I feel like that's a small group in the community, in our communities. Like, that's doing it we talking about a major level. We're not talking about your people on the corner pushing stuff. We talking about it's only a handful of people that's doing it within the community. So I just had, and I struggled with this for a long time myself because I came from that environment. So to come back and be like pointing the finger, which I try not to point the finger, but I look at it like this. How can I let 5 people stop money from coming into my community? It don't make sense to me. What you're doing is putting a chokehold on your whole community.
Just to fatten your pockets.
Just to fatten your pockets. Now you want to talk about being real? That's real, and that's the only way you can look at it, because you're not one of them people that's out giving back to the community every weekend or once a month or anything like that. So the only thing you're doing is taking. You're doing what everybody else doing in your community. So you can't complain about what the government not doing, what the police doing in your community or not doing, because you are part of the problem as well. You stopping your people from getting what's meant for them. And to another thing, to really make anything happen in these communities, we have to have people on board, and it don't take a lot of people. If you look at what happened in Houston in the last week or two, they're looking at the pedestrian laws now. There were 22 people that went down to city council and told their personal stories one by one about incidents they've had, whether on bikes, walking, or anything on Houston streets. And unfortunately, there was a person that was killed recently as well on a bike by a Metro bus, which also, you know, made the local government pay even closer attention to them. But sometimes that's what it takes. You know, if that's the catalyst, then you have to ride that wave and push for what you want, like they did. So now, last week, Mayor Turner had a press conference on the corner where the guy was ran over by the Metro bus, and the city is looking at the pedestrian laws now, and they're taking a hard look at it, and they're going to change them. And it's the same thing in the community. You just take one issue at a time. You get people who's affected by it, and you go down and you tell your stories. And we're affected this way, and this is why we're affected, and these are the changes that we think could work. You go down with the problem and the solution. You can't just go down with the problem. Just like I drive Lyft, and it was actually today I picked a guy up in Greenspoint, and that's another thing. A lot of people. I know a lot of people drive Lyft and Uber. They try to stay away from places like that. I'm there. I'm your local Lyft driver. But I'm picking a guy up today, and I'm pulling in the apartments, and they had this big metal. It looks like a gate. It basically looks like a gate that you can pull up, and it'll block off the driveway. Mm-hmm. So when the guy got in the car, I'm like, "Hey man, what is this?" Because it was new. I know those apartments, and I hadn't seen it. It had got there within the last year. And he was like, "Yeah, they just put those there about 3 months ago, and those are to help during hurricanes to deter the flooding." And I'm looking at the whole design, and I'm like, I don't see what it's going to deter anything. It's just going to push water further down, and it's going to get in another way. That's the only thing I see. He said, "Yeah, but what it's doing right now is messing up everybody's tires who coming in and out the apartments." I say, "So you mean to tell me they put something in play for what was it called, a 1,000-year event, the hurricane, that's tearing up people's tires every day?" So I took his number down. I said, "Look, I'm able to talk to the apartment people. I'm gonna try to find out who the owners are of these apartments and try to talk to them and let them know the problem that this is causing. Even though I know the concept behind it, but it's causing problems right now, and it's costing your residents money. And when the residents go into the office and complain about it, you tell them there's nothing you can do. That's to protect the apartments, and it's not right. So in that situation, you would first try to go talk to the owner, see if y'all can find, come to an agreement, an understanding. If not, then you get the people who've been affected by it. And if you can get 20 people who can show that, hey, my tires got messed up rolling over this in these apartments, then they're going to have to take a look at it and be like, okay, maybe this didn't work. Maybe we need to go another route, So that's what it's all about, is just coming together, getting people on the same page. And that's just what I do. I do that through conversation every day with people. I always try to talk to people. And I surprise myself. And that's why I try to do it more and more now, because you'll see somebody and the look on their face, you may be thinking they having a bad day. You may not want to talk to them, but I still try to talk to them, get them to open up a little bit. And you'll find that people are just as passionate about their community as the next person. It's just they don't know where to start.
Man, bro, I swear, every time you come in, you dropping gems on us, man. I appreciate it. Before we get on out of here, man, because I know this weather finna get real bad tonight, and we want to definitely get you on the road so you can be safe. Let's just do a real quick rundown of the organizations that you got going. Let's go back and go over, the stuff that you got coming up, and then some long-term goals if you have any.
Okay. All right. Once again, I'm vice president of the Super Neighborhood 2 in Greenspoint. I am right now the director of the Greater Greenspoint Civic Club. We're still in the process of trying to get members in to get that off of the ground. And again, it's just a step-by-step process. The more you're in the community, people see what you're doing, they'll jump on board. So I'm just being patient with that. And then we have mangrovecommunity.org, which is my personal organization. Through that organization, that's what we'll be doing, the community cleanup. It's called Clean the Green, for the Greenspoint area. Again, that's May 18th from 8 a.m. to noon.
Where are they meeting at? Where can people go to?
And we'll be meeting on Rush Creek Drive between Ella Boulevard and Spears Road. And you can see both streets on Rush Creek, so we'll be somewhere in between there, and you'll be able to spot us.
So they don't have to have to call, register, or they just show up?
Yeah, well, yeah, you will have to register. You can show up, but we do want people to register. Right now, you can contact me at carljward85@gmail.com. I'm working on getting the website and things like that up as well. So, yeah, but you can contact me there if you're interested in volunteering. We can let you know again where it's at, the time, date, things like that. So yeah.
Okay, that's what's going on, man. Any goals later on in the year? Like you said, May 18th. Any long-term goals you got going?
Okay, again, and let me the back to school drive. That's going to be August 10th. Again, sorry about that. That's August 10th. That's at Thomas Wusso Park from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Okay. Come out, wanting to have fun. We're gonna have food, games, giveaways, giving out free haircuts. Moonwalks. We're even gonna have the train out there going around the park. It's gonna be a nice event. Have 97.9 The Box out there. A few of our local leaders will come through and speak. So it's gonna be a nice event. Long-term goals we're working on. We're working on a swimming program. We're getting that into play. One of the long-term initiatives, and this is a long-term project for Greenspoint, is figuring out exactly what we can do with that mall. With Greenspoint Mall. Okay. And I know, because we talking M's now when we talking about taking over the mall. But believe it or not, we've been talking to some investors, potential investors and things like that. So it's just getting more people on board and really coming up with the plan, getting with the drafter now to try to see if we can draft this idea and this concept that we have for Greenspoint Mall. Okay. And, once we get that on paper, we can start putting it out in front of people and really seeing what they think about it and get them on board with the whole concept. Because that's another thing that'll bring a lot of business and it'll bring a lot of people from outside the community to the community, so.
That's cool. That's what's up, man. All right, man. Before you break out, man, any shout outs, any last words you got for people?
Yeah, well, I want to shout out Chopped on Blaze, my boy Dennis. He's been doing a lot of work with me in the community. Want to shout out Sensei School of Martial Arts. They're also doing a lot of work with us in the community. They have summer programs and things like that. If you're having any disciplinary issues with your children or just anything that you want them to focus on or get better with, man, I highly recommend Sensei School of Martial Art. I've seen him work with a lot of different kids with different type of issues and backgrounds, and I've seen changes within the year I've been going to the school. So highly recommend it. The YMCA out in Greenspoint, been working with them a lot. They've been on board and they're doing a lot in the community as well. So appreciate them, and and my family as well, because those are my biggest supporters. They got my back on everything, and even though they get scared, they worry about me sometime with the field that I'm in, and the recent happenings with Nipsey Hussle and things like that. But they got my back. I told them that I'm in it for the long haul, and they in it with me for the long haul. So I appreciate them as well.
That's what's up, man. What's here, man? Glad that you came by, and I appreciate your presence and then coming by and dropping gems for the people.
Thank you.
So, we're going to go ahead and break out so we can beat this storm that's supposed to be coming. And, man, keep in touch and don't hesitate to let us know whatever you need so we can help out with you on your community outreach and things like that, man.
Gotcha.
All right, man.
All right,
appreciate it.
Yep.